Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel Say What's Real TV. This review is for Tyler Perry's Sistas, Season 6, Episode 12, Daydreams. So we open up the episode exactly where we left off, with Karen going down there to the law firm and calling herself trying to unalive Fatima. Now, everybody and their mama already knew, including the workers that were running up the steps towards Karen with the piece in her hand, that this was a bunch of foolishness. So she comes out of it, snaps back to reality, out of her little daydream, and Andy is like, Karen, what are you doing here? So we see Fatima standing there unscathed, so she says to Karen, yeah, what about me? And Zach, he runs up saying, no, this is not what we're doing, trying to defuse the situation. So he tells Fatima, go ahead and go back to work, as if he's her supervisor, and lets her know he'll stay to the office until she gets off from work, I guess for protection purposes. Fatima tells him he can't do that, and he says, yes, he can. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, where's the security around this building? So Karen asks, did you get the results? And both of them in unison says, yes, we did. And Zach wants to know, do we really have to do this here? And she says, why not? We're at a law office. And I'm like, well, what the hell they got to do with anything? So Karen says, I just wanted to see the look on your face when you got the results. Fatima was like, oh, you talking to me? She said, yeah, you walking all up in my house. So they get into this whole back and forth about that. And Fatima says, look, I had a plan. I was actually trying to come there to talk to you woman to woman until you started slinging all the bees all over the place. And Karen was like, yeah, because you walked up in my house uninvited. So Fatima actually apologized for that, but then she brought up the fact that Karen was coming on to Zach, and Karen did recognize the fact that she was wrong for doing that, but at the same time, really didn't give a damn. So then Zach was like, can we just move on now? And Karen says, oh, I get it. Y'all trying to be nice to me to keep me out of Zach's pockets. So Andy's standing there lost in the sauce as always. Zach and Fatima, they shaking their head laughing at this fool. And the rest of us looking at Karen like, girl, what the hell are you talking about? So Karen says, oh, hell no. His child is going to have everything that they deserve. And Zach just shakes his head at Karen like, do what you got to do, Karen. And him and Fatima, they end up walking off. So Karen, can you explain to the audience, how is Zach trying to keep you out his pockets when he just gave you a check for your raggedy ass salon burning down, and you, Karen, ripped the check up and said you didn't want anything from Zach. You didn't need his money. He's already established that he's willing to give you so much a month, even when you were 2 days pregnant. He don't even know if it's really his. And I still don't know where they do that at. Y'all coming up with these cockamamie ass emails and this and that and the other. Ain't nobody got time for that. And to top it off, we already have heard that way in season 7, you are still trying to determine the paternity of this same said child. So I don't know why you're doing all of this. If it's Zach's baby, fine, dandy. No one cares. We don't care. I'm quite sure, will be willing to take care of his child. It has been said already. So what are we doing? But anyway, Andy, she's trying to calm Karen down, and Karen basically lets her know, look, girl, I'm not going anywhere with you. And they get into the whole disagreement once again that Karen tells her she needs to make a decision who she wants to be friends with. So in the midst of all of that, Pam and Aaron are walking up, and Karen gets hella annoyed, like, what are y'all doing here? So Aaron tells her that they just wanted to make sure she was okay. And Karen told him, look, don't follow me, none of y'all. And she stormed out. So Pam want to know, did the smoke damage her brain? And Andy's asking, like, what are y'all doing here? Like, how did y'all even know she was here? And Pam says, because we heard her on the phone. So Andy gonna have the nerve to tell them, don't be listening in on Karen's conversations. First of all, Andy, were you not on the speakerphone in the office with Zach and Fatima listening to her hollering over the phone? So what make you think that Pam and Aaron wasn't standing right there, which they were? You act like they were somewhere eavesdropping behind a wall or something. So girl, hush. Just like Pam say, girl, please, what's wrong with your friend? So the three of them all agree that they have never seen Karen display this type of behavior before. So Aaron, he decides he wants to talk to Andy alone. So he asks Pam, can she give them a second? And Pam was like, why can't I hear? Like, y'all gonna stop, treating me bad just because I'm not one of the sisters. but she did end up leaving them for a minute. So then Aaron, he brings up a quote-unquote friend that he had that had a pregnant wife, who the friend says that the wife acted different in the beginning, and he wasn't sure if maybe that what was going on with Karen. So they're talking about maybe it's the baby, the hormones. Child, they don't know. They just talking, and I don't know why Pam couldn't stand there to hear all of that, but whatever. So in the midst of Aaron talking, he makes the statement, with us having this baby. And Andy is taken aback. She's like, wait, whoa, what? Hold up. What'd you say? So Aaron was like, what? She didn't tell you? And Andy says, tell me what? That I was the father. And he says that he saw the test results, and Karen didn't tell him. He saw him on his own, and no, it wasn't his friend that works at the hospital. She would never do that. It's other ways to find out. And Andy basically told him, look, I'm not going to discuss any of that with you. You have to talk about all of that with Karen. So do you guys think that Aaron actually saw some true test results saying that he was the father? Or is that the reason he sent Pam away, because he wanted to really try to pick Andy's brain to see if she would disclose to him what Karen actually told her about the pregnancy results? What do you guys think? So we head over there to the precinct, and we see Sabrina and Calvin. They're sitting there waiting on what's going to happen with Maurice. They're waiting for the lawyer. Sabrina, she's been calling him, getting no response. They've been waiting like an hour and a half for him to show up, and he's nowhere to be found. And Calvin wants to know, maybe it could be because Bio has something to do with it, and maybe there was some truth to what Maurice said about him being homophobic as to why the lawyer has yet to show up. So Sabrina, she starts making excuses for Bio, saying she doesn't think he's that type of person and he's not like that. But as she's sitting there, she's becoming more worried about what's going on, working herself up, stressing herself out. And Calvin, he's trying to calm her down. He tells her the usual, I got you, and that everything is going to be okay. But in the back of his mind, he wants to know what's going on and looking just as worried as she is. But they continue to wait. So we get inside the interrogation room where we got Maurice, Logan, and a DA guy. And he's asking Maurice all the necessary questions, and Maurice can't give him any answers, providing absolutely no evidence. And the guy was like, look, when I look at the video, you look like you're in distress. Maurice over there sticking to his guns, being stubborn, basically wanting the charges dropped against Sabrina. He wants to just admit to whatever and go to jail. And the DA told him, look, it doesn't work like that. So he asked Maurice, is Sabrina threatening him? And he says that she is not. So then the DA was like, well, I think you're feeding me a bunch of BS because none of this is making any sense. And I was like, I'm with you when you're right, because I feel the same way. Why are we here? It's making absolutely no sense. But anyway, so Logan over there acting a fool, getting mad at Maurice, telling him to say what it is you told me. And Maurice was like, I already said what I had to say. So the DA guy was like, look, excuse us for a moment while him and Logan step outside. So the DA, he gets Logan outside, and he basically tells him, look, they didn't do it. Maurice don't know a damn thing. He just in there trying to protect Sabrina. And Logan, he's adamant that they did it, and the DA is telling him, stop, just stop. What is this all about? What are you trying to just make chief? And Logan said, that is not what this is about. So the DA told him, look, when you first called me about this case, I was happy to jump on it. But in hearing all of this, any half-ass attorney will be able to provide reasonable doubt to clear them. So if you're not trying to make chief, I'm going to need you to get your head about your behind. He said clouds, but his head nod suggested otherwise, and provide some solid evidence, and he didn't want any bull crap behind video either. Logan agreed to that. The DA asked about Q and his whereabouts and told Logan that he needed to get him in there because the two of them needed to talk. So Logan wanted to know what he was supposed to do with Maurice now, and the DA said, let him go home. So we head back over there to the law firm where Andy claimed she had to go back to work, but we see her jump on the phone and call Danny and tells her that Karen just left the firm and that they need to go by Karen's house again to check on her. And Danny was like, not this ish again. Like, she is sick and tired of being sick and tired of dealing with Karen and her foolishness. Okay. So Andy proceeds to tell Danny the entire events that took place, spilling all the tea on what was said, where Karen told Zach and Fatima that he was the daddy, and then Aaron later on getting there claiming he was the daddy, and just telling everything. So Danny seems to think that Karen has just basically lost her mind. Andy is saying that they need to help her. So Danny says that her cousin was like that when she was pregnant, like scary and stuff. And Andy says that it feels like it's just something different other than the pregnancy. So she tells her she will be going to Karen's house later on that night, and she wants her to be there, and she wants Danny to call Sabrina. We go back over there to the precinct, and Maurice, he done got released, but he over there acting crazy like, oh, they didn't believe me, like I need them to believe me. And Sabrina's telling him like, no, you don't, because you're lying. So he didn't want to hear all that, and he wanted to know, did the lawyer show up? They told him no. So he told Sabrina, look, you need to accept the fact that your friend Bayo is a homophobe. And you could see Sabrina getting it through her head that maybe that could be true. So they told Maurice, let's go home. So then here comes Logan pulling up like he's Stacy Marks from over there off of Power Force trying to get Tommy Patrick Egan. I mean, just got a hard on for these people. Why? We don't even know. So he tells Sabrina and Maurice, I'm going to get you. I'm going to get you. Like, why? What is it about arresting Sabrina would be so rewarding that it would make you chief of police? Like, she's not like this big time criminal that's been on the run for decades and decades to where if you solve the case that you're going to be on the front page of the news. Like, what is it? Like, it's not adding up. It doesn't make sense, and we're sick of it. So we get a scene with Gary and Hayden, and they're in the office going over taxes. So Gary, he clearly can see that Hayden is distracted, so they bring up Tamara and the whole annulment thing and the prenup and this and that and the other. Gary basically told him, get the annulment stuff taken care of because 6 months will linger on to a year. So Hayden is trying to tell him he was happy the 2 weeks that they were together. He tries to be vulnerable with him and, transparent and let him know, look, I was lonely until Tamara came around. Gary didn't give a damn. Gary is so insensitive. He was like, okay, y'all was only talking for a couple of weeks. Like, get over it. Like, really? So Hayden asked him, do you believe in love at first sight? And Gary told him, look, Tamara's playing you. So they have this whole back and forth banter about who knows women, who don't, this and that and the other. Gary tells him he used to be the fat, chubby kid back in high school. And I was so glad when Hayden said, look, bro, you didn't know me back in high school, because I know they didn't think that we, the audience, forgot how Hayden and Gary actually met. So the two of them continue their little playful banter about Gary knowing everything and thinking he the mandingo and got everything all figured out. So Gary tells him, look, you just call me when she calls you. And Hayden told him, I'm not telling you nothing. And he was like, oh, you don't care no way. All you care about is this tax stuff. And Gary was like, well, are you done with your little pity party? So I guess after being petty as always, Gary looked at the time and said he was going to get on up out of there. And he ended up leaving. But we quickly see him go over there to harass Andy, barges into her office without knocking, without a receptionist coming to announce who he is. He act like he run the place, as usual. He gets in there, he don't say, hey, cat, dog, nothing, hey, how you doing, not one thing. But what he could muster up to say is, so, you're on a dating app now? And Andy basically let him know, like, yeah, and is. So he claimed he saw her and then says that a friend sent him the information. So Andy asked the $1 million question, why are you always down here? And he said he was working with Hayden on some taxes. And Andy had to clarify, not in my office, Hayden's down the hallway. So why are you here? So he said, oh, it's like that. She said, yeah, it's like that. He said, well, what's up with all these dudes you around here dating? And she said she's enjoying herself. She loving every minute of it. He told her she needed to be careful because the app was not a safe site. And she was like, well, I guess I'll just have to find out for myself. So I don't know if this is really foreshadowing for something to happen as a result of the app and her dating, or is Gary just being a hater? So then he lets it be known that the person who owns the site is his friend, and they have several lawsuits against them already, and that she can ask Hayden about it. And he was like, I'm not asking Hayden a damn thing. And I want to know, like, how is it all of a sudden that Gary knows everybody or easily can find out all this information about everything that's going on? When Andy was helping Robin with the whole long shark thing, he found out all the information about that by digging or know somebody who knew somebody. Aaron needed some help down there to the salon. He had the mayor in his back pocket and just made one simple phone call to get what needed to be done. How is that? Because when he was sitting in jail and needed Hayden's help, he didn't know the mayor then? Because I'm confused at that, how all of a sudden he the man around town. The minute Andy gets on this dating website, you are friends with the person who owns the site, and you are notified that she is on the site dating multiple men. I'm confused at how they can even associate Andy with you, because the two of you are never out in public together. You don't go out on dates. The only time you are in public is when you show up to her job and you're talking to her then. Otherwise, y'all just home hunting somewhere. So how would somebody know to associate Andy with you to even notify you about anything? Basically, bottom line is you probably on the site your damn self dating multiple women. So Andy tells him, you just trying to tell me that so you can control me. And he says, we all know that you're going to do what you want to do anyway. And she told him, I'm glad you know that. So Fatima, she comes in and basically kicks Gary out of Andy's office. They sit down and she says, I heard you talking about the website. And Andy tells her, look, I'm really not going to date all the guys on the site. I just want Gary to think that I am. And they laugh about it. Andy, she's getting ready to wrap things up for the day, getting ready to leave. But she notices that, Fatima is acting like she has something to say or whatever. So she brings up Karen, but then she asks Andy, did she see the results of the DNA testing? And Andy told her she didn't. And she hands her the paper and says something is off about it. And Andy looks at it and she was like, you see where it's saying that Aaron is not the father, but it doesn't say that Zach is because Karen did not have Zach's DNA. So Andy's looking at it like this is interesting, and she's looking a little shook. And Fatima was like, well, what is it? And she was like, oh, nothing. And she was like, Andy, always able to get something out of Andy. Now, this is where nobody should feel sorry for Andy, because this is where she gets in trouble, because the same way she told Aaron, I'm not going to discuss Karen and this baby with you, is the same thing she should be saying to Fatima. So she sits down and tells Fatima what Aaron told her. So the two of them are sitting there trying to figure out who could have told Aaron that he was the father of the child or given him the results. So Fatima, she ended up saying it doesn't matter because the baby isn't Zach's. So Andy was like, well, I don't know, because she's only been with those two guys. And Fatima had to let it be known, look, this information here says otherwise. Like, have you ever thought about she could have been with somebody else? And Andy pulling that, oh, I know for a fact my friend, blah, 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 blah. And I always tell people, never say what a person will or won't do, because they will have you in these streets looking like a whole fool. So you don't know who Karen over there hunching. So it's best to just leave that alone. And not only that, Andy, you really shouldn't even be discussing who Karen giving her coochie to anyway with anybody, and definitely not with Fatima. So you really should have nipped this conversation in the bud like a long time ago. So we go over there to the airport and we see Danny getting off from work, and some random guy steps to her. His name is Tony. He says he parked next to her. They come to work at the same time, go to break at the same time, leave at the same time. And basically what it boils down to is he knows everything about her. He knows who her friends are. He's calling them out by their name. He knows about Preston. He knows that she's late on her rent. He knows all the type of music she loves. He doesn't like the country so much. And it's a little stalkerish. It's giving off red flags. And my thing is, if you're going to step to her, with some sense. You don't step to her and blurt out everything that you have already heard. Like, you keep that to yourself. And the reason he knows these things is because when they're on break, Danny has her windows down and she's talking on the phone, And Tony says she's talking extremely loud, so he can't help but hear. And I get all of that because I'm nosy like that too. I would be listening to your conversation if you talking that loud, because y'all be having a lot of drama anyway. So I would be listening, but I'm not going to go back and tell the person what I heard. Like, that's crazy. So he calls himself asking her out for a drink, and that way he can get a chance to tell her everything there is to know about him. And she declined, once again letting him know that I am with someone, which you already know that. And he was like, well, I hope you could join me. I'll be at this place here until 10 o'clock. And then says, I'll see you there. And I'm hoping like hell Danny doesn't show up, because I know you can't be that desperate. Or can you? Put it down in the comments if you think that Danny will leave Karen's house and go meet Tony for this drink. So Danny, she called Sabrina and basically wanted to know were she getting any of her messages. Sabrina told her that she was. So she let her know that she was on her way to Karen's house, and she notices that Sabrina sounded a little funny. So she was like, well, what's wrong with you? Sabrina didn't want to talk about it. So, Danny don't give a damn. Danny's like, girl, what's going on? And she said, I'll talk about it later. She said, well, ain't nothing going on at Karen's house but talking about Karen. So what's up? What's going on with Maurice? Is he going to jail or not? And Sabrina said no. So she was like, well, are you going to jail? And she said, girl, I'll tell you about it later. So they end up hanging up. So Fatima, she makes it home, and Zach claims he was getting ready to come look for her if she didn't walk through the door when she did. So they end up sitting on the sofa having this little lovey-dovey conversation. And after all of that, she ends up asking him, is he hungry? And he says that he can't eat because he knows that Michael is not over there eating, so it's hard for him to eat. So Fatima asks him, does he want to go over there? And he says, nah, that's all right. I know you're tired. She says that's okay because I know Heather's probably getting ready to go to the poll anyway. And he's like, are you sure? Are you sure? And she was like, yeah, that's fine. I'm like, Zach, if you really was that worried about Michael and eating, the neighbor had already told you the little boy don't eat. This has been days since you last saw him. So quiet as it's kept, you should have already been over there dropping him off something to eat or something. So I don't know why we doing all this like, oh, you can't go unless Fatima get home to go. Like, that's your seed. You got to take care of him at the end of the day. So if you was that worried, you would have took him something to eat already. And then he's like, oh, she's like, okay, come on, let's go. And he was like, under one condition, there's no fighting, no fighting. So apparently she's not pregnant on Sistas just yet, because we wouldn't even be talking about fighting. And then he says, oh, well, if you don't promise not to fight, then we're not going to go. So that further lets me know you weren't that concerned about him eating or not. But anyway, Fatima, she says, let me go change my clothes. So when she goes upstairs, he's like, oh, yeah, make sure you leave your purse. And I'm like, well, who is she going to be fighting anyway? Her and Heather are not at each other's throats like that. They have become a little better with each other in their communication. So who is she going to be fighting? But the ironic part is, in the trailer, you're the one who's fighting. But for good reason. It's all for a good reason, though. So we go over there to Sabrina's, and apparently she called Bio over. So he comes in, and, she's telling him about Maurice, how he confessed, and automatically Bio was like, oh, I knew he did it, and she had to let him know he didn't do it. He was only trying to help. And she was wondering, like, what is your issue with him? And he was like, his lifestyle, and he wouldn't last a day in his country. So Sabrina was like, well, okay, he's gay. Do you have a problem with that? He had like he don't want to talk about it, this and that and the other. So Bio tells Sabrina the only reason he helped Maurice in the first place was because of her, and he would not have done it under any other circumstances. So Bio says he doesn't like Maurice. He just does not like him. And Sabrina's trying to get him to say why he doesn't like him. So she's throwing it out there like, why? Because of this or that. And, oh, you're closed-minded. And he's like, I'm not closed-minded. He says, look, I really don't want to talk about him. I'm only here to help you. Like, I don't want to talk about him. I put up a lot of money for his bail. So what are we really talking about? And he basically lets Sabrina know, look, if he wants help with a lawyer, he needs to pay for his own lawyer. So before that, Sabrina did ask him about why the lawyer didn't show up to the precinct. And Bio said that it was because he was busy. And Sabrina was like, And Bio was like, look, I only paid him to help you. And if he had time to go down there to help Maurice, then that was cool. But apparently he was just busy. So Sabrina was like, well, I wish I would have known that before I called him. And Bayo was like, well, now you know. So then he proceeded to ask her, do she want to go out to get something to eat or something? And she done got into her feelings and she was like, no. Bayo, he done went to looking all crazy and she was like, look, I want to thank you for all your help, but I don't think we should be doing this. And he's like, doing what? And he says, look, I done did a lot up and through this piece and I want a return on my investment. So Sabrina was like, investment? Like, what you expect? And he looking at her like, you know what time it is. So she like, oh, so you think I'm going to sleep with you? So Bayo said, of course. And not only that, I want you to marry me. I want you to be one of my wives. Bayo tells Sabrina when he agreed to give her the money, that was like signing a contract. So Bayo tells her that when he gives a woman and her family some money, then that person is promised to him. And by her accepting his money, then that is her agreeing to be one of his wives. Sabrina is left dumbfounded and asking this fool, what are you talking about? And the episode ends there. Ooh, child, well, the girls are back. They are back. So what did you guys think of this episode? Drop down in the comments and let me know what your thoughts were. As always, you guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.